Hey guys, Dee here from Good Choice Reading with Wanda and Maria. We're here in Books of Wonders in New York City with at the Spring to Into the Future event with Carey, Tahereh Mafi, and Veronica Rossi. Thank you, lady.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So, tell us about your book in 6 words.
Alright, I think I got this. Hold on, let me do it on my fingers. Girl torn between fear and love. Good.
Nice.
Yes, I did it. Yeah.
Good one.
That's deep. Well, I had the prep before with that other question.
Okay.
I cheated a little bit.
Okay, fighting back for the first time. Did I just like cheat? Fighting back for the first time.
Nice done. Good.
I don't know how to count. Like, really.
2 worlds, 1 love. Read it.
You just won that.
And so my question to you guys is, all of your books have strong female characters, which we love on our blog. Why do you feel like that was so important for your story?
Yeah, I think Eve grows tremendously over the course of the book, and for me, even more than knowing the plots of the 3 books, I really knew how I wanted her to grow and change, and I knew I wanted to take a character who was kind of sheltered and didn't have a lot of real life experience or survival skills, and had kind of gotten this, not even kind of, had really gotten this warped education, and kind of expose her to everything and see how she changed in the process. So for me, it was less about like starting off with a strong character and more about writing a character who grows tremendously. And I think there's an important, message. Sounds kind of cheesy, but I think really there's an important kind of story to that, which is just that strength isn't something you have or don't have; it's something that grows with experience. Which I think is cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd have to like totally echo that. I think, for those of you who've read the book or are familiar with the book, Juliet, when you meet her, she's been locked in for 264 days, and she's been isolated for so long, hasn't talked to anyone in just as long, and she's kind of losing her mind a little. And it really is a story about her growth, and you see that over like the course of the trilogy. Even, she really transforms into someone else completely. Still herself, but just like really coming into her own. And I really think there are different types of strength. Some people fight physically in a strong way, and other people show great internal strength. And they persevere through like most difficult times. And I think that's also like really, really incredible. And I think it's important to talk about that, to touch on that, and to show that when difficult things happen, you have to make a choice. You're either going to let it break you or you're going to let it build you. And our reactions to that are really important. So, it's to kind of, there are a lot of girls out there who maybe they're not like super strong, and it's to say that like you can get there. Like if you're not feeling super secure or super confident about who you are now, that's okay. Like if you're a teenager and you're worried about who you are and who you're going to be, that's okay. But it will get better and you will get stronger and you can get there. So.
Yes. No, I totally agree with everything they've said. I think for me, one of the things that I loved in writing a character who finds her own strength and finds herself is that in that journey, what really rang true for me is like that no matter what the obstacles were that she faced, she didn't give up. And I guess like I personally maybe like write to teach myself things or to figure things out that I believe in, and I really do believe that. I believe that you just have to sometimes like keep going, and you always have to, when there's adversity or a problem, it's just you have to just pick yourself up, and that is how you find experience and maturity. And it's one of my very favorite things about the YA genre is that process of like finding your voice and discovering who you are, and that's I think what all of our characters is their journey really is like discovering who they are as an adult. So.
Thank you.
The next question is, it seems like the dystopian is becoming the next big thing. Why did you choose to write a dystopian novel?
Yeah, well, I feel like dystopian chooses you. You don't choose dystopian. I actually, when I was writing it, I was more thinking of it as a post-apocalyptic novel, and I realized, it follows some conventions of the dystopian genre, but in my mind, I still think of it as post-apocalyptic. I was just really interested in writing a survival story and writing about someone who was kind of thrown into this situation, this life or death situation, and the stakes are raised, and everything is more important than it was before. And really, for me, it started out as a question, you know, what do you do when you find out that everything you've learned is a lie? And that was kind of the basic question of Eve that I had explored in a couple different books I had written, and it kind of came to the surface of Eve, and I just always loved that concept, and a post-apocalyptic world seemed the best way to explore.
Yeah, it seems like it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
I never set out to write a dystopian novel. I just I was sitting down one day, or I was about to sit down one day, and I could see this girl, like in my head, I could hear her voice, and I could picture her sort of like curled into herself in a dark corner, and she was scared, and she was alone, and she had been locked up. All I knew about her was that she'd been locked up for something she didn't mean to do. So she was guilty, but her intentions were good. And I just sat down and I just started writing. I just followed her voice and discovered about the world that she lived in and what her issues were as I wrote the story. And it wasn't until afterward that I realized, the dystopian society seemed to suit like her abilities and like how she had gotten in that predicament. It all just sort of fell into place organically. And it wasn't until after I finished it that you look back in retrospect and you see that it didn't actually come from nowhere. It wasn't like it all just like came from the sky. It really did, it was maybe subconsciously the result of like questions that I've been asking about the world and where we might end up. There's environmental disaster and there's, fear of like what might happen to the world if people don't, take responsibility for what's happening to it. And
Which is scary because when you think about what's happening today, it's like, wow.
Yeah, like even today, like there were like 120 different tornadoes in 4 states.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was watching, we were on the plane and I was watching the news and I was like, Lord, and it makes, sometimes you wonder, and those are the things that kind of prompt you to ask questions, like when you see those things. So anyway, so that's, I never intended to write a dystopian novel, and but it's great that it's getting out there. It's a great genre.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I actually also did not intend. It's not like what I sat down and decided to do. It just evolved out of the desire to write a story where I could pit 2 different societies together and 2 very, very different characters together. And I knew that I didn't want to write a time travel novel. Like I knew I wanted like extreme opposites. And I just started playing around with ideas, and it's that same sort of thing. Like I'm very interested in technology and like that question of like where is it going to take us, and what might we be sacrificing and leaving behind. And so that is where like the 2 worlds kind of evolved from those questions. And at the same time, the characters were evolving from those questions as well. What might be a good representation of a person, who has only lived this very artificial existence? What should be like, And so, so that's why that's kind of how I fell into the genre.
I felt more like your book was more sci-fi.
Yeah. I was just talking with someone about that. It definitely is a little bit, I think, more sci-fi than.
What's also actually my question's for you. Why did you choose to write from both characters' point of view, and was it very challenging? Like, was that challenging for you writing from a boy and a female point of view?
Well, I decided to write from the 2 characters because I really wanted to be able to show both of the societies very, very well. And when you're in one character's mind, you can't really show the other world, like what they don't know, is it's impossible to show. And so it really allowed me to have the scope, having the 2 characters, and so that's why I decided the 2 points of view. I originally actually wrote it in Carey's point of view completely, and then I actually started it again in Aria's, and then I was like, you know what, this is how it's gonna, work best. And it really did. Once I figured that out, it was like, okay, this is the way to do it. So they were both pretty easy. They were both, because I had a real sense for like where they came from, and because it was so different. they both kind of came to me pretty easily, I will say. And I spent a lot of time with each one individually before I brought them together. So.
Okay, so you wrote one part first and then the second.
Yeah, I mean,
added.
I didn't write the whole thing through. I just like drafted it loosely, but it was enough for me to get a real sense for the character and what they thought, how they moved through the world, and what their experience was like in that world, and how they might react to something different. And so so when it came together, it was great.
The next question is for you, Tahereh. Okay.
Are we saying it correct?
Yeah.
Wait, before you ask your question, let's get a look at her shoes. Let's get an eye on that.
The famous
How
bag.
awesome are they?
They're actually very comfortable.
I'll topple over.
They have like a platform, so it's like you're not actually walking very support.
Yeah.
There's a lot of support.
Yeah, I'm clumsy. I'll probably topple over. All right. You wrote Shatter Me in a very unique way, where you cross out words and phrases. Why did you choose to write your story that way?
That actually was, I didn't even think about it. Like the very first time, the very first page, the strike-throughs that are there, that was exactly how I drafted it in the original form.
Nice.
Like those first pages, the first chapters of it are almost exactly what they were when the very first time I sat down to write them. Because it just felt like the only way to express the self-censorship she was experiencing. Because she's been isolated for so long, and she's been left with nothing but like a little journal that she writes in occasionally, and it's like, and she's in her own head so much. It's like she writes things down and she crosses them out, and she writes another thing down and she crosses it out, and she's really struggling with who she is. She's been labeled a monster by society. She's been cast off by her own parents, just tossed away. And she's kind of grappling with her identity. Like, am I a monster, or am I more than human? Am I even still human? And the journal's narrative sort of bleeds into her inner mind, her inner monologue, and in her inner narrative, and in her dialogue. Like sometimes we say we're thinking something, but we don't say it.
I really did enjoy that part of your writing, because you know what she's thinking,
right?
But then she says something maybe differently.
Right,
I like that.
Right. But as she grows as a character, like as she gets stronger, and you see in the story, like the strike-throughs get less and less, or there are fewer of them as the story progresses, and as she sort of comes into her own. So the stronger she feels, more confident she is, the less she censors herself.
Yes.
So it's just.
I really like that.
And then Anna, our final question is for you. So throughout Eve's journey, there's all these obstacles in her way. Which, as an author, did you feel was the most challenging to make her suffer through?
Well, I actually think one of the hardest obstacles in the book is, those several chapters when she first arrives at the dugout, and she's just met Caleb, and Arden's sick, so she's kind of alone in this world with all boys. after the education she's had, it's kind of intense for her. So I think internally that's like the most crazy obstacle. Like, how do you reconcile everything you've been taught with what you're learning every day to be true? Yeah. She's learned that they're dangerous and they'll manipulate you and they're not trustworthy and they're dishonest and they can be violent, and yet she meets Caleb and he's none of those things. So she's trying to kind of piece together all these things she's been missing, and that's definitely the biggest struggle for her in the first book. Though she encounters many other things. Probably scary, really scary, intense. There's really scary, intense moments in the book, but I think that for her that's kind of like the biggest thing.
Well, thank you, ladies, for taking the time.
We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
I know, this is exciting.
Thank